Alex, this is a quick video on negative ions, and so I just want to briefly comment because people are really intrigued by negative ions therapeutically. They've been studied since the 50s, and I put a lot of that research on one of my websites. So with the TheraSage mat you see in the distance here, this one does not have any sort of dedicated negative ion emitting layer. Now jade, which is what is on top of it, does naturally emit negative ions, but the question that you always want to ask is, what is the rate of negative ions created? Okay, and there is actually a way of measuring that. There's also devices out there where you can measure that, and my associate Ron actually will do that in another video where he'll actually measure the ion rate, okay, of each of these different sorts of mats, as well as other sorts of gemstones that aren't in a mat configuration, and that's a good video to watch. Just to actually compare them technically speaking. The Biomat now has a lot of different infrared emitting layers to it, and so all those different infrared emitting layers definitely have a lot of elemental properties that when they're warmed up emit negative ions. I would probably put this mat in general as the second highest in terms of negative ion output, and of course you'll see those results as well when we take an ion meter to it. Now, with the Biomat, there's multiple layers as well in here, just like the Biomat, but this is the only mat that has a dedicated layer, the TOPCA layer. That's what it's called if you see it in the manual or online. But that layer is dedicated to producing negative ions. They just added that in just a few years ago. Before that, it was just the amethyst or the tourmaline. And now, since they added that unique layer, you have a huge increase in the actual out of ions generated per centimeter per second, okay? And now with this quantum pad, what we have in here is some additional sorts of elements, okay, that are known also under heat and pressure. So if you're laying on it, you have some pressure, you also have the heat stimulating it, you have the infrared of the mat actually stimulating some of the materials in here. And for example, like peach pit, there's a couple scientists who studied natural materials basically in nature. And when it comes to releasing negative ions, as well as other types of, we could say, biocompatible energy, and again, we'll cite that research if you want to take a look at it and who those scientists were, and their conclusions were that some of these different sorts of plant elements will release similar energies to what a healthy cell does, and can release and increase those energies being released when you, again, put pressure on them, or heat, or something like that, or electrical energy. So again, all that energy is running through the quantum pad. So there is some additional ingredients in here, which you can see listed on our site of what's actually in here. It's not just a pad, so it does actually increase potentially, if you take a look at that research of those scientists, and if you believe kind of what their conclusions were, that potentially this could be more therapeutic and help. And so there is one other advantage, by the way, to using a quantum pad, and I will go over that in the next video because I think this thing is pretty cool. And this was just introduced to the market just a couple years ago. So if you have any more questions about negative ions, and also if you just want to take a look at real research on negative ions, there is a lot of stuff out there, and it is, I think, something really important to pay attention to. Thanks for watching.